Welcome everybody, it's Callous. We live in a world where, with ADV being as old as it is, and with the community being as tight-knit as it is, all the best players know each other, and they've all talked, they've all played each other at some point or another. These are two of ADV's all-time greats, all-time top 10 players, and you would think for sure, at some point along the line in their very lengthy careers, they'd played against each other before in a tournament. As it turns out, against the odds, these two players, Astamatitos and Tamahome, have never played against each other in an ADV tournament. Our researchers confirmed it. I talked to Asta. He confirmed it himself, straight from the horse's mouth. They have never played against each other in tournament play. So I have the supreme honor and pleasure not only to have my tournament be the first time for this historic matchup between two ADV all-time greats, but as it happens, this is in round 5 lower bracket, so they are playing for their tournament life. One of these players will be eliminated in this first-time tournament encounter between two of the best to ever play the tier, Astamatitos and Tamahome. It is an absolute treat, honor, and pleasure to be able to bring this to you. A historic matchup. Best of 3, let's go. Asta's on the bottom, Tom is on the top. They're both not playing on alts. Pretty easy to tell who's who. We've got Zapdos and Salamence leads respectively. Mence gets out of the way, has to play around HP Ice, Thunder Wave, all sorts of bad stuff that can happen. None of those things do happen. It's a Metagross, which becomes a Zapdos again. First attack of the game is from Tama, and it's a critical hit. Bad start for Asta, 55%. Stays in with his own, and it's going to be Thunderbolt and Thunder Wave respectively. Asta was faster to begin with, but now he's faster. And he's going to go to Lax here. T-Tar comes in as well. Generally, T-Tar has the edge in this matchup, but it is set dependent. It could be like an EQ Lax against a special Tar, for example. But that is a very hefty Earthquake, possibly Choice Banded to do that amount of damage to Lax. And Lax, yeah, he Earthquake's back, but he's not going to be able to stay in here. He will just die to another Earthquake if so. They both end up switching to Salamence, and the slower one, or sorry, the one that comes in second rather, belongs to Asta, who gets the Intimidate off crucially here, and that's going to force Tom into his bulky water. He goes to Swampert. Asta was willing to stay in and play the Mence on Mence game. Asta not gaining lefties, so it looks like he might have a CB Mence, but he gets out of the way. Starmie is going to be his answer to Swampert. It is just a Surf, so 16%, not a huge deal. See what Starmie wants to do here. And he's going to go for his own Surf, 31%. Toxic for what looks to be a Monopert for Tamahome. Surf and Toxic is usually indicative of Monopert, but I guess it's not definitively that just yet. I would strongly think that it is, though. And Metagross comes back in for Asta. That eats a Surf, and that does have leftovers, so no CB, no Pinchberry, none of that. We've got a more traditional meta in some way. And turns out it's a mixed meta. He lands the Psychic, but Thomas switches in very aggressively his previously unrevealed Dugtrio, but it doesn't kill from 81%. Gotta have some bulk to it, that meta, and that's gotta be a jolly Dugtrio who got a bad roll. 80% won't do it. Pursuit will. Dugtrio dead, and I think Tom probably had a favorable damage roll there, but got unlucky, and Asta's gonna reap the benefits of that. Dragon Claw here from a mixed Mence from Tama, so they have different Mences. Mixed from Tama, who of course has lefties, and I think CB from Asta on the bottom. Dragon Claw recover, Hidden Power, cool play there for Tama, sensing that there's not real danger here, probably not Ice Beam on the other side. Goes for HP and not only negates the recover and then some, but also fishes for a crit. And now Tama goes to his own Starmie just in case Asta happens to have and go for Ice Beam here, but that is not the case. Star on Star. Last poke Magneton comes in for Asta, so we now know the full teams for both guys. Looks like Magneton's not going to be doing a lot of good. He's going to eat a Surf on the way in. He'll be outsped and killed should he stay in. And he does not. Tama goes for the obligatory surf because, gotta kill the Magneton should it try to get cute. Instead, Asta goes back to his own Starmie. That is also outsped and killed, and there is the Thunderbolt. Tama now has evened it up to 5-5 with Asta's Starmie falling. Lax comes in, it's at 46% after eating that big EQ earlier from T-Tar, Swampert in, and Lax begins to curse up. Don't know if it's Curse Rest or if it's a bait set, Curse 3 attacks, but we'll soon find out. Swampert that we believe to be Monopert, not a massive threat to it, 15% from Surf, the best it can do, and a hefty return for 42% coming back the other way. However, have to be aware that Torrent is a factor here. He's not there yet, but he can get there. And Asta doesn't want to play that game. He's simply going to go for Rest. That's immediately going to get roared out, so certainly looking at a Monopert. And Zapdos is going to be what gets roared out here. Lax is healthy, but he has to kill those sleep turns at some point. See if he can do that. Toxic coming down, swing and a miss on the already paralyzed Zapdos on the other side. Good switch for Tama, negating Zapdos with that good prediction. And Asta's forced out. Thunderbolt on the incoming Lax, who has killed 0 sleep turns thus far. May try to kill one here, but has to be careful about letting the T-Tower or the Salamence come in for free. Instead, he's going to opt to Thunderbolt again, just in case Asta anticipated, say, the T-Tar coming in, and switches to Meta or Mens or whatever he may want to do. T-Tar comes in now, and 2 sleep turns are killed, but Lax in actual danger here. Based on the Earthquake damage, Rock Slide could just kill him here. And it is Rock Slide, and despite the resistance, that's going to kill Magneton. Down that goes. 5-4 lead for Tama now. CB Mance, very dangerous here. Certainly going to scare the T-Tower away, you would think. Here comes Zapdos. And great prediction there on the money for Asta. Goes for the Rock Slide into the T-Tower. Nails the Zapdos. However, Swampert can come in here, which is fine. That just means that both players should switch. Surprised that Asta didn't switch as well. But it was an effective use there of the CB Mence. He got some damage off, a lot of damage off on the Zapdos. And maybe he could do a little bit more later. Brings his own Zapdos in, almost gets it killed. He's at just 10% here. Gonna have to click the right button, make a play here. And he's gonna go for Rest, so it's a bulky set as it turns out. And Surf only 18% from the very defensively sturdy, but not so hot offensively, Monopert from Tamahome. Here's Meta. Down that goes. It gets foddered off to Surf. That leaves us in a 3-5 favoring Tamahome. And in comes the Lax, who, as we remember, killed those 2 sleep turns before. We know the full set. And he is going to attempt to wake up and do some work here. Instead, it's actually a double switch. Asta's going to use this opportunity to get his Zapdos in. He'll be against the Mixed Mence on the other side, so he should be relatively safe here. And that's going to start killing sleep turns as well. That's the first one. This is a self-induced sleep with Rest, so we know exactly when he's going to wake up. But can he survive CB Tower in the meantime? The answer is, of course, no. And there does not seem to be a good switch to CB Rock Slide here. Goes to Mence, not because it's especially great at taking Rock Slides, but because he's faster and he gets an Intimidate off. And he goes for Rock Slide again. That's going to take out Zapdos here, but this does not solve the overall issue. Asta's in a really tough spot, having to break the 4 Pokemon remaining from Tama, one of which has Intimidate, but he's going to go for a Rock Slide flinch despite the fact that it only does 13% to Swampert, who probably has last move Protect as well. Could be refreshed, though. Rock Slide again, 14, and again no flinch. Salamence handily losing this 1v1. The damage back and forth is comparable. In fact, the Surfs do a little bit more. And Swampert has Protect. And Swampert gets lefties through sand and Salamence doesn't. This is going absolutely nowhere. It is looking overwhelmingly likely that it's going to be Game 1 to Tamahome. Asta not ready to concede. He's going to go back to Lax here. And Salamence comes in as it does. Can simply click Brick Break here if it is in fact a mix set as opposed to just fully special. And Asta really doesn't have a good answer for that. Salamence comes in for the Intimidate on the fodder. Intimidate does make it so the Brick Break does less damage to the Lax. So now Asta's plan, his only plan, is to set up this Curse Lax, his last poke, and win with that, which stranger things have happened, but it's going to have to go perfectly for him. There is Curse Boost number 1. That's a good start. Now he has to predict perfectly. Do you go Curse again or do you go Rest on this turn? It matters a lot whether the T-Tar comes in or not. He could get it with Earthquake here. Nope, he goes for Rest. But he did have an opportunity there to Curse or Earthquake. +1 Earthquake, I think, probably kills the CB Tower there. So he had a shot, but he didn't pull the trigger. Had he got Earthquake there, maybe he could win this game. But now, even through the Curse boost, one Focus Punch is going to be enough to kill him from 100%. CB Tower really does hit that hard. And Asta, even though he had a small chance at the end, had he played absolutely perfectly, which is obviously a lot easier said than done, is not going to be able to take this one down. And game 1 is going to go to Tamahome. But remember, we are still in the stage of this tour. There are no best of 1s, but we're not in the best of 5 stage either. We are still looking at a best of 3 here. Needless to say, Asta more than capable of rattling off 2 games in a row against anybody in the world and making this comeback. So Tama does have the edge, but this set is not over yet. Let's go to game 2. So, keeping the players where they were before. Asta's on the bottom, Tama's on the top. They both have meta leads this time. And a fantastic start for Asta, who gets a turn 1 Earthquake critical hit. Immediate free advantage for Asta right on turn 1. Tama on the back foot. That is very much what Asta wanted, to get some momentum back and get himself a nice early lead when he is down a game. Heracross from Tama. Focus Punch and then Swords Dance respectively. Fire Punch lands what could be a crucial burn. We'll find out, I guess, if it has Guts or if it has Swarm. But if it does, in fact, have Swarm, then Asta's really catching some luck in this early game. Turn 1 crit, turn 3 Fire Punch burn. I mean, that's huge. I mean, Tom is just in a world of hurt if it's not benefiting with a Guts boost right now. He's going to miss a Rock Slide. Don't know how much it necessarily would have done to Hariyama. I mean, again, if it's Guts, then it's very boosted right now between the Guts boost and the Swords Dance boost. Yeah, I mean, Megahorn doing that amount, maybe it actually is Guts, so maybe the burn wasn't that bad. They're going to go back and forth, Megahorn and Brick Break. Rock Slide is going to come up just short, actually, with the over prediction, but he's going to catch the flinch anyway to stay alive. There is no sand, so he doesn't kill the Hariyama, but the Heracross crucially takes more burn damage. And at this point, Tama simply clicks Rock Slide again, and Hariyama, without doing too much of anything, is going to go down for Asta. So now, Heracross on Starmie. Heracross basically dead here, but Tama's not ready to give it up. Switches in Zapdos on a Surf, does 24%, and obviously Starmie does not want to see that. Out of the way, here's P2, previously unrevealed. Makes sense, though, with the Jirachi, the meta, and all grounded Pokemon so far. It switches into a Thunder Wave, and there's no Natural Cure on the other side for it to trace as of now. Swampert comes in, and this is, wow. We've got a crit, a burn, and a freeze in 11 turns, benefiting Astamatitos. And, well, Swampert does thaw out, but man, Asta's caught a couple of breaks very early on in this game. T-Tar comes in at this point, setting up that sand finally. And the full team is known for Asta here. Tama has not shown his last poke, but we could probably... Okay, never mind. I was going to say we could probably guess as to what it is. That would not have been my guess, but it does make sense. The Meta, the Hera, and the T-Tar are all Pokemon that Dugtrio handily takes care of, so Tama has incentive to make Dugtrio go away. Porygon 2 is a great way to do that. And here's Thunder, not Thunderbolt. Would have been a nice little surprise move if it were to catch something that isn't already paralyzed, but crucially, we see that Tama does not have any Natural Cure anyway. However, what happened there is the Porygon 2 for Tama traced Natural Cure from Asta's Starmie, and then Porygon 2 for Asta traced the Natural Cure that had already been traced. Basically, in a convoluted way, Asta almost traced his own Natural Cure from Starmie. Not the opposing Natural Cure, but his. and he's actually going to recover his Porygon in that way. So a weird interaction that you definitely don't see every day, but that's what happened here, and he's going to get his Porygon too, not paralyzed anymore, despite the absence rather, of Natural Cure on the opposing team. Kind of cute. But anyway, Swampert, who has shown us nothing but Earthquake up to this point. Obviously not a Monopert this time from Tama against Starmie, which has shown us Surf and Recover. And they're just going back and forth here, Earthquake and Recover. Earthquake will run out of PP quite a bit before Recover will if they keep doing this. There is the Recover again. And Tama pushing the issue. Even with a critical hit, he would not kill the Starmie here. He's doing high 30s, low 40s with each of these. I've seen as low as 39, as high as 44 up to this point. And yeah, there's another 44, but like I said, even hypothetically, had that Earthquake with that damage roll been a critical hit, that would not be enough. So I'm not quite clear what the plan is here for Tama. He made us feel like he doesn't have a good switch, but I mean, he can just go to Porygon 2, I think. I'm not clear on why we're doing this, but Tama must have a plan, and it involves wasting all his Earthquake PP. He's got 7 of them left. There we go. He switches at this point. Dunyan Rings, here comes Zapdos, and Starmie, as it's been doing all along, is just going to recover. It does waste some recovers as well from the Starmie, but realistically, he's got 24 left. I don't see it being an issue. Zapdos for the obvious Thunderbolt, aimed at the Starmie, doesn't try to predict, just goes straight for the throat. And Jirachi comes in taking 35%, goes for Wish, and Tama doesn't fish for a crit or anything cute, simply goes for the more reliable Thunder Wave, which he hopes will catch the Jirachi with a full power later on at a convenient time. That's a Toxic from Asta, and he hadn't shown that before, so that's going to reveal the full set, and it's going to catch Swampert off guard for Tama. I don't think this particular one is going to have Refresh. It could. It could be like Earthquake, Ice Beam, Refresh, Protect, or something like that. But I think there's a good chance it doesn't have Refresh, and that Toxic is going to stick. So if so, that's good for Asta. Sitting in a 5-5 right now, despite the multiple early hacks that Asta got. Tama has seemed to have stabilized a bit. Thunderbolt here, fishing for crits and full powers and such, but finds neither here, and through the para, Rachi gets a Wish off. Protect to eat its own Wish, and just Thunderbolt from Zapdos. So Jirachi, despite being paralyzed, going to get back up to 100% with the Wish and the lefties combined. And Thunderbolt again, fishing again for a crit or full para, but finds neither, and now Zapdos as well is going to find itself hit with poison. We don't know if it has rest. It could. We've seen only Thunder Wave and Thunderbolt. Most Zapdos these days do not have rest, but it's not like an unheard of set. It totally could have rest. Finally, a full para kicks in for Rachi. See if Zapdos wants to go for the throat here. Nope. It's the T-Tower pullback for Tama, and the Wish does get off through the para. Does he want to gamble getting the Protect off through the para and potentially die to the T-Tower if he doesn't? Answer is no, but Tama doesn't go for it anyway. He goes for Dragon Dance. +1 Earthquake is a lot, and Brick Break is even more. T-Tower from 100% at +1/+1 is going to go down, and Tama is going to concede on the spot. The Brick Break takes out what Tama must perceive to be his win condition in the T-Tower. Might be a CB Gross, probably is a CB Gross. I don't think a non-CB Brick Break kills there, but CB Gross with Brick Break is going to take care of it. T-Tower going to fall, and Asta is going to send us to a Game 3. How appropriate. I feel like there have been a lot of 2-0s recently in this tour. This is one of those sets between these two players, a historic matchup, the first time they've played against each other in any kind of ADV major tournament. Obviously, you want to see a Game 3 here, and we are getting what the fans want. One game to rule them all. One game to find them. Alright, not going down that road, but one of these guys is about to be eliminated. That's huge. We're in round 5 of CALLOUS Invitational 4 lower bracket, and this is the third, final, and decisive game between two of the ADV all-time greats, Astamatitos and Tamahome, in their first ever tournament set. So proud to have that in my tour. We will switch the sides for continuity. It is Asta and Tama once again, and they will both lead meta once again. This time, Asta doesn't land an immediate critical hit. Tama, of note, has actually led Metagross 3 games out of 3. I don't know if there's something to that, but he has led meta every single time in this series. I don't know if he's just on a meta kick recently, or if he thinks that's just a good poke against Asta in particular, but of note, every single game, it's been lead Metagross for Tamahome. So, it is a different team overall, though. Tama has not had a Coon up to this point. Asta looks like he might have the same or a very similar team, maybe even identical, from the previous game that he just won with. Tama less clear. You would think there's a Magneton in the back with a Meta, a Coon, and a Celebi. All pokes that very much want Skarm gone, so Magneton makes a lot of sense to me. I would think we're looking at like Magneton, Lax, Salamence kind of thing, kind of like a mid-range physical offense for Tama, but we'll see. Right now, he Celebi's up this Rachi. It certainly looks like the exact same team for Asta. Oh yeah, there's Big Daddy Hariyama, and there is Heal Bell for Celebi. Just getting rid of that status effect early on. We don't like when our Coons are paralyzed around here. And Leech Seed again. Again hitting Rachi, but without spikes, which I'm not clear that Tama is going to have. Leech Seed is obnoxious, but it's not game-breaking. You can just switch out of it. There is a Lax, makes sense to me, so there is definitely going to be a Magneton in the back for Tama. There just has to be. All 4 of these Pokemon that Tama has shown want Skarmory to not be there. So it's going to be Mag X, and I assume X is something that is immune to spikes and earthquakes. So it's either just a Magdoll team, could be a Claydol, it also could be a Salamence or a Zapdos, but Magneton and Spikes immune Pokemon X is, I believe, what we're looking at here. And Knockoff is going to remove lefties from this +1 Lax, but he has given the pain to the Hariyama with those boosted body slams. And Celebi comes in at this point thinking there'll be another Brick Break, which, of course, there is, and Celebi's going to resist that. Hariyama at 18% gets out of the way, even though Celebi hasn't actually shown an attacking move yet. Only Leech Seed and Heal Bell, and that doesn't change here. It's another Leech Seed. Here's Wish, and here's Heal Bell. Status Woes Begone. That's going to remove the paralysis from the Lax, so everybody healthy again. Metagross comes in very low, 12%. And Hidden Power Grass, despite the resistance, will be good enough. Meta gonna fall. And Hariyama low as well, but it makes a reappearance here and eats the Wish. Goes back up to 74%, and we're in business. Leech Seed and Knockoff. So that's going to be a second poke for Tama that doesn't have its item, which of course was leftovers. Now Lax comes in for Asta. And that again gets Leech Seed. That's a prime Leech Seed target. That's like, other than Blissey, that's like the best thing in OU that you can hit with Leech Seed. Lax on Lax, and nope, Lax on Hari. Good switch for Asta. And Lax doesn't have lefties for Tama either, so no real incentive for him to stay in here. Wow, great turn for Asta. So not only does he double switch to get the Hari in against Lax, but then he predicts the Celebi and goes for a surprise HP bug and devastates it for 67%. Then he predicts the switch and goes for Knockoff. So a perfect sequence of 3 turns in a row for Asta, making the right play at every turn and doing a ton of work. Knocking off a third item, heavily damaging the Celebi, no risk to himself. Asta does everything right in that sequence and gets himself quite a bit of momentum back here. Coon comes in at this point on a Wish, and it is the right play from Tamahome now, knowing that Asta, even though he hadn't shown it up to that point, might have, and in fact does have Protect, because this is, I mean, he kind of sort of showed it last game. There's always that question of, did Asta switch anything up? It certainly doesn't look like it. It looks like the exact same poke, exact same team, rather, that Asta had in the previous game. So, Coon is going to calm mind up. He's going to go for Surf. He's going to eat a 4% Fire Punch. Woo! There's no Sand in play for either guy, and I don't think there's going to be either, because if it's the same last poke for Asta as before, it's not T-Tar. And then in Tama's case, I've said all along that it's going to be last poke Mag. So I think we're going to be playing a sandless Game 3. So bulky things like Lax, Coon, Celebi, Rachi, those are all going to, I mean, Rachi's not as affected, but the other ones, those are going to be harder to kill with the absence of the sand. That's where Hariyama really comes in and does a lot of work, though. If we're playing that game, if we're playing the who's bulkier and no sand game, man, gotta like the Hariyama knocking things off. I mean, no item for Zap, no item for Celebi, no item for Lax. Just MVP Hariyama here is just spreading that knockoff everywhere. It's going to be a bad Shadow Ball here, but Asta with an opportunity to still do pretty heavy damage. Switches it up to Earthquake at this point, so Curse, Shadow Ball, Earthquake. You would think that it's just last move Body Slam, but it could just be a weird rester, but we're never going to get to find out because he's going to get self-destructed on. And that is going to leave us in a 5-4 situation, favoring Tama. Hariyama comes in. Hariyama goes out. Here comes Jirachi, 33%. It doesn't look like he's going to live another one, but he does have Protect, which he, of course, is going to go for here. It's now an awkward damage roll situation. Last one did 33. He's at 33. Maybe he lives, maybe he doesn't. He's not going to risk it. Can't blame him. Porygon 2 comes in instead, and of course, Tamahome is going to go for it. He would love to kill another poke if he had the opportunity, and there's very little risk for him in exchange. Toxic going to connect, as does Thunder Wave, of course, with 100% accuracy. Both pokes afflicted with status problems. Remember, Celebi from Tamahome, if he gets an opportunity to use it, does have Heal Bell, which would fix both the Coon and the Zapdos. Porygon 2 is going to go for Ice Beam, aimed at Zapdos, but if the Celebi had tried to sneak in, it would have hit that as well. And Coon is going to try to wake up the old-fashioned way. Despite a lack of boosts, he's going to eat this Thunderbolt just fine. Only 33%, and he's got lefties because, like I said, no sand. And this whole time, Porygon 2 is suffering from the effects of that Toxic. Thunderbolt again, this one only 25%, but he finds a 10% paralysis, which may come in handy. What he's really looking for is a crit, and he's going to go for it again. Thunderbolt, full para. So Porygon 2 is on its last legs. He's getting very, very low from this Toxic, but he'll have another opportunity for a crit or a full para, and he's not going to find either one. That is a rest, and Asta now, I think, is in dire straits. He's going to have only the Rachi, the Hariyama, and the secret last poke, which is not so secret. We all know what it's going to be unless he switched it up, against Tama. Hariyama has been the MVP and has been the biggest thing keeping Asta in this game, and he again is going to try to bail him out. He's going to start focus punching here, and he's going to try to kill the Coon. Cool set here. Brick Break, knockoff, HP Bug, Focus Punch. I like that. Focus Punch could do 40% to Zapdos despite resistance, and Zapdos again does not have lefties thanks to this Hariyama. Brick Break 20%, Thunderbolt 47%. Hariyama, because of the fact that Zapdos is paralyzed and without lefties, is winning this 1v1 right now. Awkward, 20% before, 19%. Brick Break now may or may not kill. Asta going to go for it, and he's going to get unlucky, but he's bailed out by a full para. Tama there could have killed the Hari and left Asta basically dead, but full para kicks in. That's actually even better than him killing the first time because he gets an extra round of lefties. And what do you know? Last poke Magneton, which I think was very, very obvious. Last poke Starmie comes in for Asta. That's not going to beat Magneton 1v1. In fact, it's going to do nothing. It's going to come in and immediately get Thunderbolted. Rachi comes in. It's now trapped with Magnet Pull, but Tama's unhappy with the situation, gets out of the way. Rachi going to wish up, and Asta is going to have to rely on this Rachi and this Hariyama in whatever combo to get the job done here. Nice Fire Punch prediction for Asta there, sniping the Metagross who was trying to sneak in on a Protect turn, but Asta called that out. Good attempt for Tama, and good call for Asta. 2-3. This is not over just yet. There's the wish, and Coon continues to kill sleep turns here. Fire Punch because he knows it's going to wake up, and he doesn't want to risk the Hariyama. And Tamahome knows that he's not going to risk it, so he doesn't go for the attack and simply Calm Minds up. Toxic to put a clock on the Coon, and there is Calm Mind number 2. The goal here for Asta is going to be to get the Hariyama in at the exactly perfect turn, which is the rest turn, and get some focus punches off. That's going to be his only way to beat the Kun. This Rachi cannot do it, so this completely is a matter of when the Hariyama sneaks in. If he's wrong, if he comes into a surf, the Hariyama will die to this Kun, and we will basically be done here. Alright, here's a crucial turn. Nope, he goes for Protect. And there's the rest. So that would have been the turn, as it turns out, to sneak the Hariyama in. Asta's not dead, but that was really, really bad for him. And I don't like going for the Hariyama here. I think he had to stay in and wish again at that point. I think the play was to reestablish the Toxic on the Kun. He's going to try to scare him out with the threat of Focus Punch from Hari, but Tama doesn't fall for it. He just sits in and deals with it. So Asta maybe has one more chance to do this. It's going to be really, really tight. He's going to have to land a Toxic and keep the Jirachi alive this whole time. It's going to be hard to do. It's going to be real hard to do. And Tama again exploits the Protect turns from Asta by simply Calm Minding up. Toxic and Surf respectively. This is looking real bad for Asta. I'm not sure how he gets out of this. The answer might be that he doesn't. There's Wish, there's Surf. I think we're done here. Hariyama is going to be able to get in at this point, but there's a minor problem of a very, very boosted Kun on the other side. Can't imagine Hariyama has any chance to live this Surf. Asta knows that, and Asta is going to concede. The ending to this historic first encounter between Asta and Tamahome is going to be a 2-1 victory for Tama. Asta, the second place finisher last year, is going to be eliminated fairly deep in the tournament, but nevertheless out of the money this year. And there's a lot to talk about. This was a pretty good set. Both of the games that Asta lost, he did have a small chance to win. It would have required perfect play. It definitely wasn't him getting unlucky. It was very specific things, many of which require making exactly correct calls, have to happen, but Asta did have chances. Like I said, in this game, had the Hari come in on the rest turn, the first rest turn of this Kun in this last little sequence here, whatever turn that was, let me scroll up, turn 60. Had the Hariyama come in on that turn, maybe Asta could get out of this. I mean, it would still become a prediction fest. Celebi is waiting on the other side. You don't want to focus punch into that. I don't think it's that big of a deal because if it's last move recover for Celebi, even if you focus punch into it, and even if it just gets a recover off, Hariyama could just hidden power it. The Magneton, I don't know if it lives a Brick Break or not from Hariyama. It definitely doesn't live a focus punch. It might not even live the Brick Break. I'm not sure. This is admittedly the Brick Break Hariyama versus Magneton calc is not one of the calcs that I have looked up anytime recently. So I don't know what the outcome would have been had the Hariyama snuck in on that rest turn, but it certainly felt like Asta had a chance. The Hariyama at that point would have been very, very dangerous, really hard for Tama to switch into. Maybe Asta could have gotten there had he made that play. But it's really hard to do. I mean, at the same time, if he switches in the Hariyama at any given time and he's wrong and it just gets hit with an immediate surf, he basically loses the game on the spot. So this is way easier said than done. The point is there was a path to victory for Asta, and unfortunately for him, he just wasn't able to find it. Great set. Hope you guys enjoyed it. But the outcome is a 2-1 victory for Tamahome. Asta's going to be out. Tama's going to be alive in the lower bracket. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thumbs up if you did, and I will see you guys with more CALLOUS Invitational 4 content.